Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into, well, a really fascinating and intricate situation. We're looking at a nation often described, maybe behind closed doors, as an unwanted democracy.
Yeah, it's a striking phrase, isn't it?
It really is, but, don't let that term fool you. This is a country that's strategically asserting its place on the world stage with quite undeniable vigor, almost defiant, you could say.
It is more than just a catchy phrase, though. That idea of an unwanted democracy, it really does kind of capture India's unique geopolitical paradox.
How so?
Well, it's not really about being excluded exactly. It's more about how a democratic power, one that's fiercely independent, has to navigate a world where the major players, both democratic and authoritarian, they often have very strong agendas.
Agendas that don't always line up with India's.
Precisely. So India is forced to constantly balance its own interests against these external pressures. It's a continuous tightrope walk.
Okay, so that's exactly what we want to dig into today. Our mission is to take you on a journey through the very latest analyses of India's geopolitical landscape, right here as we stand in 2025. We want to get beyond the headlines.
Yeah, uncover the really important insights, maybe some surprising facts too.
And crucially, the why it matters. Why does India's intricate dance with global powers and its own significant internal challenges actually matter to the rest of the world? We'll explore how these external forces, the domestic realities, and India's own bold foreign policy choices are shaping its destiny.
And maybe even altering the global order in some ways.
Exactly. Think of this as your unique shortcut to really getting a handle on a pivotal global player.
Our goal is to give you that nuanced perspective, so you can be truly well informed about what's happening in a super dynamic region that frankly influences the entire planet, way beyond its borders.
All right, let's really unpack this concept then. India as an unwanted democracy. It's provocative. It hints at these immense pressures India must be facing.
It does.
When we talk about global influences shaping India's relationships, who are we mainly talking about? Is it mostly the U.S. and China?
Primarily, yes. Their strategies, their competition, it all profoundly shapes the environment India operates in. But that term unwanted, what does it really imply?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Is it that its democratic values somehow challenge the status quo, or is it just, inconvenient for the grand plans of these other major powers?
I think that's a really crucial distinction. It's probably less about a direct rejection of democracy itself
Okay.
and more about India's refusal to be, let's say, neatly aligned. Yeah, it's a democratic principle. Sure, they might offer a counter-narrative to rising authoritarianism, but it's fiercely independent foreign policy, its insistence on what it calls strategic autonomy.
Right. That makes it unpredictable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not a reliably aligned partner for the established powers.
Yeah.
And this ambiguity, this refusal to fit neatly into boxes, that's precisely where India derives its unique leverage on the global stage.
But also where the pressures come from.
Absolutely. And this dynamic, it creates direct regional ripple effects. It deeply impacts how India interacts with its close neighbors, like Pakistan and Bangladesh. It sets up this really complex stage where every single diplomatic move can have far-reaching consequences for regional stability.
So it's not about India being shut out then. It's more about it having to navigate this world where these big players, the US, China, they have their own very specific, often conflicting goals for the region.
That's a great way to put it. It's like India is playing chess, but on a board where multiple grandmasters are constantly moving their pieces around India's own.
And India has to find its own winning strategy right in the middle of it all, often going against the grain.
Precisely. And speaking of complex relationships, let's talk about that strategic dance between the U.S. and Pakistan.
Right, that's always a fascinating one.
It really is. And this isn't just something recent. It's a long-standing, deeply multifaceted relationship. Goes back decades.
Woven together by shared interests, like counterterrorism, energy, trade.
But also, let's be honest, fraught with periods of deep mistrust and tension. It's very up and down.
And here's where it gets really interesting with the 2025 developments. We saw a pretty significant diplomatic breakthrough, didn't we?
We did. Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Ishaq Dar, actually meeting U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Washington.
That felt like a big deal. It was the first high-level dialogue in years, wasn't it? Signaled a clear recalibration.
Absolutely. And Dar used that meeting very strategically. He emphasized Pakistan's desire for an expanded and stable relationship, but he also, quite shrewdly, acknowledged India's growing regional prominence.
While still highlighting Pakistan's own undiminished strategic importance.
Exactly. It was a careful balancing act on his part.
And that desire for stability, it wasn't just talk, right? There was tangible support
Oh,
involved.
yes. It's backed by real support. We've seen substantial U.S. aid continue, including a really critical USD 1 billion IMF disbursement back in May 2025.
And the timing of that was interesting, wasn't it? Facilitated by U.S. influence, right when India-Pakistan tensions were flaring up again.
It was very notable, this continued aid. Even though there have been past suspensions of security assistance, it really reveals Washington's quite sophisticated balancing act.
Trying to keep a critical strategic foothold in Pakistan.
Yes, partly to counter Chinese inroads, even if it means navigating those historical tensions and domestic political sensitivities back in the U.S.
Mm.
It effectively ties Pakistan into this complex web of dependence, in a way.
And then, as you mentioned, there's China, always the elephant in the room, acting as this crucial counterbalance in the region.
Definitely. China's role, mainly through these massive infrastructure projects under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC,
It's really deepened its ties with Pakistan, hasn't it?
enormously. And the U.S., in turn, is acutely focused on preventing Pakistan from aligning too closely with China. They see that as a direct challenge to U.S. influence.
So it's a delicate tightrope walk for Pakistan, taking essential U.S. financial aid while also strengthening strategic and economic ties with Beijing.
It's a classic geopolitical squeeze, no doubt about it. And this whole complex dynamic was really laid bare during that May 2025 India-Pakistan standoff.
Right. Secretary Rubio stepped in to mediate.
He played a critical role, actively working to secure a ceasefire. Now, while this clearly underscores U.S. influence in regional stability, its role as a kind of crisis manager.
What's the deeper insight there?
Well, the key insight is how that mediation, even when it appears neutral, often inherently leans towards India's strategic interests, just by virtue of India's size and economic weight.
Ah, okay. So it subtly but significantly complicates Pakistan's position.
It does. It kind of reinforces this notion that Pakistan, despite its own importance, often finds itself navigating a regional landscape that, push comes to shove, tends to prioritize India's concerns.
Okay, so from that very complicated dance with Pakistan, let's pivot. Let's talk about a story of, well, significant fence mending. The rapidly improving relationship between India and the Maldives.
Ah, yes. That's a fascinating turnaround.
It really is, because that relationship had hit a very rough patch back in 2024. Remember President Mohamed Muzzou's India Out campaign?
Vividly. It was quite tense for a while there. But by July 2025, wow, the turnaround was truly remarkable.
It seemed very swift, almost like a decisive diplomatic win for India.
I think you could call it that. What really stands out are the concrete steps that were taken to achieve that thaw. India genuinely stepped up.
What did they do specifically?
Well, they offered a substantial USD 565 million line of credit, specifically for Maldivian infrastructure projects.
Okay, that's significant investment.
And maybe even more significantly, a substantial 40% reduction in the Maldives' debt repayment obligations to India. That's huge relief.
Wow. And wasn't there more agreements signed?
Yes. Beyond that, 6 new agreements were signed, covering vital areas like fisheries, digital infrastructure, healthcare. And there's even been real progress on a free trade agreement, plus actively promoting India's UPI payment system across the islands.
So this isn't just about, being good neighbors. This feels deeply strategic. It reflects India's neighborhood-first policy, right?
Yeah.
And that Sagar vision.
Absolutely. Cyber security and growth for all in the region. This turnaround is absolutely crucial for Indian Ocean security, especially when you consider China's ever-growing presence in the maritime domain there.
Right. China's very active in the Indian Ocean.
Very. And the speed of this shift, plus India's explicit role as a first responder, including that gratis refit of the Maldivian Coast Guard ship Hervey, it really showcases India's commitment.
Commitment to what? Reinforcing its maritime backyard?
Exactly. Through genuine partnership, not coercive tactics, which you could argue implicitly counters Beijing's sometimes criticized debt trap diplomacy.
So stepping back, this piece really highlights India's strategic foresight, doesn't it?
I think so. Securing its maritime neighborhood is paramount. And the Maldives, sitting right there along vital shipping lanes in the Indian Ocean, it's a key piece in that puzzle.
And India's approach here, development, defense cooperation, it offers a powerful contrast to maybe how other external powers operate.
It does. It seems focused on long-term stability rather than just transactional leverage.
Okay, fascinating stuff in the neighborhood. Now let's shift focus to a broader, maybe even seismic change on the global landscape. the significant expansion of BRICS.
Ah, yes, the BRICS group. That alliance has grown dramatically by 2025. It really reflects its ambition to, well, reshape global governance and challenge the established order.
So it started as Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Who else is in now?
Right, the original five. They were joined by Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the UAE back in 2024. And then Indonesia became a full member in January 2025.
So that brings the total to 10 members.
10 members, and this isn't just about numbers. It's a huge shift in global economic and demographic clout. The group now represents over 40% of global GDP.
Wow, over 40%.
And encompasses 3.3 billion people. What's really fascinating here is the message this sends.
Which is?
Well, it signals growing dissatisfaction, you could say, with the traditional Western-led institutions, and a real desire for a truly multipolar world order. More voices at the table.
And one inclusion that seems particularly noteworthy is Iran, joining in 2024.
Yes, that's not just adding another country to the list. That's strategically significant.
How so?
Well, it positions Iran to potentially challenge its global isolation through its BRICS membership. It could create alternative financial pathways, energy routes, things that might gradually erode the dominance of, say, the U.S. dollar or Western financial systems.
And for India specifically, what are the implications?
Well, potentially it enhances India's energy security options and connectivity prospects too, particularly through that international north-south transport corridor, the INSTC.
Right, the land-sea route from India to Russia via Iran.
Exactly. It offers an alternative to traditional routes.
But that does raise a tricky question, doesn't it? Well, it might benefit India in terms of energy and connectivity. Iran's inclusion in BRICS, surely that risks friction with the U.S., given sanctions and all the ongoing geopolitical tensions?
Oh, absolutely. That's a definite potential friction point. It highlights the balancing act India is constantly performing. The overall implication of this BRICS expansion is clear, though.
Which is?
BRICS is actively challenging those Western-led institutions. It's offering a robust platform for the Global South to assert its collective influence. Look at Brazil's 2025 presidency of BRICS.
What are they focusing on?
Major global issues: global health, climate action, AI governance. It signals a serious intent to offer alternative leadership on these critical global challenges.
Okay, so while India is navigating all these incredibly intricate external relationships, playing this pivotal role on the global stage, it's also facing some significant, maybe even surprising, internal realities.
That's right. You can't separate the foreign policy from the domestic situation.
So let's talk about those domestic challenges, starting with something quite specific: the surprising reality of Bihar's population boom.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. Contrary to some claims you might hear about decline or stabilization, Bihar's population is projected at a staggering 131.04 million by July 1, 2025.
131 million, that's huge.
It's massive. And it's not just static growth. The growth rate was 18.24% between 2011 and 2021 alone.
Wow. So on one hand, that's potential opportunity, right? A massive useful workforce.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
The demographic dividend, they call it. But it also undeniably puts immense strain on essential resources. Just imagine the pressure on public healthcare systems.
It's education too, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. The challenge of providing quality education for such a rapidly expanding youth cohort.
Yeah.
The strain on basic infrastructure, water, sanitation, housing.
And this contributes to Bihar's persistent challenges, like high poverty, low literacy rates.
It certainly does. It creates this really complex policy challenge, not just for Bihar, but for India as a whole. How do you harness that demographic potential without being overwhelmed by the resource strain?
A huge internal challenge. And then there's New Delhi, the capital city itself, a symbol of modern India, but facing its own complex web of urban problems.
Perennially, yes. New Delhi wrestles with some really tough issues. Hazardous air pollution is a big one.
Especially in the winter months.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
that combination of crop burning in surrounding states and local emissions traffic industry. It's a major recurring public health crisis.
It's beyond pollution.
Well, you've got chronic traffic congestion that just paralyzes daily life. Significant economic disparities. The gap between the city's affluent areas and its vast informal settlements is stark.
Plus issues like unemployment.
Persistent unemployment, yes. And critical ongoing concerns about women's safety, which is a major issue across India, but very acute in a large metropolis like Delhi.
Have there been attempts to address these? I know things like the pink buses were introduced.
Yes. Initiatives like the Pink Buses, free travel for women, were an attempt to address mobility and safety concerns for women. But these issues, pollution, congestion, inequality, safety, they highlight deep-seated systemic challenges. They demand really comprehensive long-term solutions, not just Band-Aids.
And what's fascinating here is how these internal realities, Bihar's population, Delhi's urban struggles, how do they connect back to India's external policies and global ambitions?
They're fundamentally linked. They underscore the absolute necessity for inclusive growth strategies across the nation. Bihar, for example, desperately needs massive investment in education and infrastructure to actually capitalize on its demographic dividend.
Otherwise, it risks becoming a liability rather than an asset.
Precisely. Similarly, Delhi needs robust, long-term urban planning and environmental policies to tackle pollution and inequality. You need to ensure that India's economic dynamism doesn't leave huge segments of its population struggling with just basic living conditions. A strong nation needs a healthy, educated, and secure populace.
Which brings us full circle, in a way. Back to India's grand strategy, its foreign policy, and particularly its steadfast pursuit of strategic autonomy.
Yes, that thread runs through everything.
We saw this play out vividly in those August 2025 parliamentary debates, didn't we? Lots of discussion about India's nuanced relations with both the U.S. and Russia.
The diplomatic friction was definitely palpable then. The U.S., for instance, was explicitly criticizing India's continued Russian oil purchases.
I remember reports that former President Trump was even threatening to impose a steep 25% tariff and other penalties.
That's right. That really put India in a difficult spot, caught between the economic leverage of a powerful Western ally and its long-standing strategic partner, Russia.
But India's response, it seemed remarkably assertive, consistent even.
It really was. India emphasized its legitimate energy needs, first and foremost, but more broadly, its unwavering commitment to strategic autonomy.
Standing firm on its time-tested ties with Russia.
Yes, highlighting the regular, direct contact between PM Modi and President Putin. Their last call, as you noted, was as recent as May 5, 2025. This isn't just about, maintaining old friendships for sentiment's sake.
It's a deliberate stance.
It's a deliberate, firm stance that India will prioritize its own national interests. It will diversify its dependencies and refuse to be pressured into choosing sides in great power competitions.
So this piece really highlights that delicate yet determined balancing act India is performing.
Constantly. It's navigating these immensely complex global dynamics while fiercely safeguarding its national interests. And that means engaging with powerful blocs like BRICS, which we just discussed.
To foster a multipolar world order.
While simultaneously being a key member of the Quad, that strategic dialogue with the U.S., Japan, and Australia focus squarely on Indo-Pacific security.
Which seems almost contradictory, engaging deeply with both BRICS and the Quad.
It does on the surface, but India's stance emphasizes balancing multiple partnerships, even ones that seem contradictory from the outside. It reinforces its role as a key player that intends to chart its own course.
It demonstrates that strategic autonomy isn't just passive non-alignment anymore.
Exactly. It's active, diversified engagement on India's own terms.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us, for you listening? We've journeyed through this incredible complexity, haven't we? The strategic importance of India's position.
Yeah, from navigating those intricate global power dynamics, the regional relationships that U.S.-Pakistan dance, the diplomatic thaw with the Maldives,
to tackling those significant domestic challenges, Bihar's population boom, New Delhi's urban maze.
and all the while steadfastly asserting its unique strategic autonomy amidst this shifting global landscape, marked by things like BRICS expansion.
It seems clear, as you said earlier, that India isn't just reacting to global events anymore.
No, it's actively shaping its environment. It's influencing the broader global order. It's a nation charting its own course, despite these immense external pressures and significant internal demands.
Offering a unique model of engagement in what's clearly becoming an increasingly multipolar world.
Definitely.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to ponder. What does India's continued pursuit of strategic autonomy, despite all these immense external pressures and internal demands we've discussed, what does it mean for the evolving definition of global power? And what does it mean for the future of international cooperation?
And maybe, how might its unique approach, this balancing of so many disparate interests, influence other rising nations on the world stage as they seek their own path forward in this complex world?
Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.